So by show of hands, or in the chat if you're virtually, how many of you have used demographic data or data about people or individuals sometime during the past year? Wow, so like everyone. Incredible. Well, my name is Emilia Ruzicka. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a freelance data reporter and technology and society researcher. Anytime we use demographic data or data about people, we need to consider gender and its impact on the story that we're telling. So here are some practical tips for improving the gender inclusivity of your data reporting from project inception to publication. Every data story begins with data. So it's essential to vet your data for gender inclusivity from the beginning. Dig into from the beginning. No matter the topic of your investigation, look into the data sources and see if they include a variety of genders, not just men and women. Additionally, some data collection methods support gender inclusivity better than others. So dig into how the data that you're considering using was collected and where it's coming from. Collecting data is a choice, and the motivations and ideologies of the people who are in charge of collecting that data will change its outcome. Finally, limiting your project to just one data source can sometimes prefer a less inclusive perspective. Consider combining data sources if that's applicable and appropriate, or presenting data from multiple sources in order to increase the gender inclusivity of the story you're telling. The next step in any data story creation process is design. To enhance the gender inclusivity of your story, we need to step away from stereotypical color schemes that represent men as blue and women as pink. Instead, use your organization's brand colors, or just use a different color scheme in general. Also, bring accessibility into the conversation here and ensure that your colors that you're using are colorblindness accessible. In the same vein, avoid representing transgender or non-binary people as a color that's a mix between whatever you choose for cisgender men and cisgender women. This can reinforce the false notion that trans and non-binary people exist as an identity between cisgender men and women, as opposed to an independent identity. Instead, choose a separate color that aligns with the color scheme that you're already using. In order to further subvert stereotypes of the gender binary, avoid using icons that present men as a person wearing pants and women as a person in a dress. Instead, take the opportunity to be creative. Use abstract shapes, icons with markings on their chest, or just label the categories with words as they are. The final step to any data story is writing and publishing it for the world. So in your story copy, avoid unnecessarily gendered language, and instead opt for gender-neutral language, like using the term firefighter instead of fireman, or humanity instead of mankind. Don't make assumptions about the gender identity of the people who you're using data on based on their anatomy or medical conditions. Just speak directly about the population that you're addressing, such as people who have given birth or people at risk of prostate cancer. Last, reread the tone of your story to ensure it doesn't present transgender people, non-binary people, or anyone else who may fall outside of the gender binary as an outsider, other, or as people whose identity might be in question. Instead, treat them as you would any other source, with respect and kindness. So, whenever you're using data about people, remember, gender inclusivity can be enhanced at any point in your data storytelling process. No matter how much bandwidth you might or might not have to increase the inclusivity of your stories, all progress is good progress and matters and makes a difference to the communities that you're reporting on. And last, as you continue to work towards a more inclusive workflow, you're not alone in your efforts. There is a whole community here of data visualizers, data storytellers, and data journalists here to help you on your journey. So ask for help. Questions?
Am I?
This is my
All right.
hello.
Let's give Emilia a proper round of applause and a proper introduction in the world of I should read the Excel file to ensure that I'm not off deck the whole morning. Emilia Ruzicka is a freelance data journalist and technology and society researcher currently at the University of Virginia, where they are pursuing an MA in media, culture, and technology, a certificate in digital humanities, and a PhD in data science. So talk to Emilia about all these amazing things at the break. With that, because of where we are on time, let's go ahead and take one question. I see a question here. Let's go ahead and take one question for Emilia before we move on to our next lightning talk.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Julie. I work in the nonprofit reproductive health space. So a lot of the gender demographic data, we see a lot of like unknown or prefer not to answer. So I was wondering if you have a perspective on how to parse out folks who actually are outside of the gender non-binary from that kind of error, like gray space.
Definitely. Great question. Thanks so much. So it kind of depends on if you have control over how that data is collected or not. If you do have control over the survey that's being used, I always recommend allowing for a space to write in your own identity or a description of your gender identity in addition to a multiple choice format. That way you can get those distinct sort of categories that a lot of people like to use for their data visualizations, but you also get a description so that you can make some of those more soft judgments that, gender is difficult to pin down because it doesn't fall into neat categories. So if you have that opportunity, definitely your survey design can facilitate having more of those distinctions. If you don't have control over that, I always recommend contextualizing your data with additional text. When in doubt, write it out is what I always tell myself. So if you don't know who is included in that prefer not to answer or unknown, add a caption or an additional paragraph and also include it in the alt text that, this category might encompass any of these potential options, folks who truly prefer not to answer, folks who maybe fall outside of the gender binary or outside of the distinct categories that were listed, et cetera, and that you acknowledge that all of those people could be included in that category.
Wonderful. Very practical question, Julie. Thank you. And thank you so much for your wonderful talk.
Thank you.